Welcome. This is the Scarlet and Rage podcast. I am Michael, the voice of reason. This is my co-host, Jay, the voice of rage. I am recovering from ear, nose, and throat type of situation that's been really bad. Starting to get my voice back. Hopefully I won't be coughing a whole lot tonight, but bear with me. I'll try to mute myself if I do. Jay, I'm not going to go with the big long introduction tonight. I feel like you want to get right into this. You're a bigger basketball fan than I am, but by virtue of your interest in the program, I have started paying attention to them some. I don't watch every game or anything like that, but I do follow them to see how they're doing. And it seems that your concerns about Diebler were pretty legitimate, because this is not a good look out there by the Ohio State basketball program. So not a whole lot optimistic on that front. So before we totally get into that, Jay, let's just talk just give me your thoughts just a moment. Did you see Ryan Day on the Urban Meyer podcast?
I didn't know Urban Meyer even had a podcast, so that should answer your question.
Okay. He's got a podcast with Mark Ingram and another guy. And so Ryan Day was on it, and, they were asking him, when did you know, or Urban kind of was telling some of his national champion and saying when he knew that they had won it that first year against Ohio State, when they were with Florida. He said there was a moment that, they stopped Ohio State on they got a first down. And he said, I looked up at the scoreboard and I said, we've won this thing. We're national champs. And he asked Ryan Day, what was that moment for you? And so Day goes on to say he had a couple of moments like that. He said, but one of them was when Jack Sawyer did the scoop and score. He said, as he ran down the sideline, as the ball bounced right up to him, I said, we're going to win a national championship.
Michael, if you can hear me, your internet's cutting out, man.
Bear with us.
Is your internet good? Is your internet working okay?
It doesn't appear that it's working.
Damn Spectrum. Damn Spectrum, everyone. Damn Spectrum. Tell you what, everyone, I don't know what's going on with Michael's internet. But to be honest, Michael doesn't follow the basketball team like I do. And I'm going to keep this more of an open discussion now, since Michael's probably not going to be able to be on this show. He was telling me he had internet issues before. He's actually switching providers. He's actually switching providers here, I think at the end of the month, finally.
Yes, at the end of the month, I am scheduled to get this internet provider out.
Who are you going with, and you're getting rid of Spectrum, right?
Correct. They've had outages in this area the last 2 or 3 days. They're just a disaster all the time. So I apologize. I'm doing what I can to rectify it. They're gone at the end of the month, but that was the first available appointment that I could get. But anyhow, hopefully.
Damn, man, what terrible customer service, man. Like, damn.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll settle in now. But anyhow, what I was saying is, Ryan Day said something interesting when he said that the scoop and score was the moment for him. And you could see Urban Meyer stopped. He went like this. Ryan Day makes the comment. Urban Meyer goes, he was thinking about it. It wasn't something that he readily accepted right off the bat. He was thinking about how do I feel about that? And so Ryan Day said, in the previous games, we hadn't gotten those bounces. The ball hadn't bounced like that for us. And so the insinuation there was that, there was some luck of the draw, that they just kind of had some bad luck. He mentioned Georgia 2022. He mentioned Clemson 2019. And he said the ball just didn't bounce that way for us in those games, as if it was just kind of a happen chance. What do you think about that? Do you think that that's a good outlook for Ryan Day, or I'll just tell you how I feel. Preferably, I don't have a big problem with what he's saying, but preferably I would rather Ryan Day recognize that he coached very differently throughout this playoffs than he did in those games that things didn't just quite bounce their way. I mean, it was a complete team. That was the difference. It was a complete team. Those other teams were not complete. Their defense was terrible, or the 2019 Ohio State had a hard time passing the ball at times. And so they were not like complete teams. This was a complete team. And he coached differently throughout these, but it seems that somewhere in Ryan Day's mind, he's still attributing it to kind of like a bad bounce here or a bad bounce there.
Well, to answer your question, if I were to give an answer, it has nothing to do with any individual game. It has everything to do with the team meeting that occurred a few days after the Michigan game. That's the answer. That's when the team had that meeting and they blasted Ryan Day and they had their coming to Jesus. That's when everything changed. So I'll stick to that. I'm not going to look at any individual play because once they changed their mindset, they played like the most talented team in the country, which they are and were, and the rest is history. But Michael, we over here in Buckeye Land have another crisis on our hands.
Well, thank God we only have one crisis, Jay, because Ryan Day solved his crisis.
Well, I would push back on that and say you're wrong. and I'll tell you why.
Well, he put a whole lot of he did a pretty good job towards easing that, winning the national championship.
No, I'm not talking about Ryan Day, Michael. I'm not talking about Ryan Day. We're moving into what this show's about. And this show is about, we haven't spoken about it much because we're so entwined with the football program. But this is not just a podcast about the football program. We cover other Ohio State sports as well. And one of those sports, everyone, is the basketball program. And I'm not going to mix my words here. This program has been an absolute dumpster fire since the year 2016, I would say. Absolute garbage, disgusting, dreadful, money-wasting POS program. And I just cannot take it anymore. I cannot take it anymore. We have not made the NCAA tournament in 3 seasons, have only made the tournament 4 times in the last 10 seasons. I honestly forget all of that. But making the NCAA tournament is not the standard here. It's not. The standard is having a Sweet 16 caliber program every single season with a Final Four sprinkled in here and there.
Jay, I agree with you that should be the standard. But is that the standard at Ohio State these days? I mean, with the basketball program, it doesn't seem like there's much of a standard for them these days.
I believe that the Ohio State athletic program seems to, up until it seems like this year, only cares about football, which is kind of a bad investment because the men's basketball team is actually the only other sport that actually makes a profit on campus. And I think that is for most schools. I think in the SEC, their baseball programs make a profit, but for the most part, every baseball program's at a net negative. So it would be monetarily conducive to the university to pay attention to the basketball program. And the basketball program is it is an absolute disaster. I think Ross Bjork poured a lot of money into the football program and winning the national championship in 2024. Again, I don't know that. I assume that. I've heard that. And the basketball program, man, they went, you spoke about this. They went really cheap. Jake Diebler
Mhm.
was a assistant coach under Chris Holtmann, and Chris Holtmann was just a disaster. He was an
Yeah.
absolute disaster, especially in his last couple of years. The program, I think 2 years ago, I'm not sure they made the NIT. I don't know, but last year, they fired Holtmann like literally like a week before this time last year. Holtmann was fired. Jake Diebler took over, and they played a little better. They upset Purdue. But then the problem is, it's like they go to the NIT and nobody, again, nobody pays attention to the basketball program. And I watch them in the NIT and I'm like, they're doing the same shit that they did all year. The defense was dreadful. Really, Jamison Battle kind of carried them. If people remember him from last year, Jamison Battle kind of carried them in the NIT last year. He was a forward with length. He was 6'7". He, in the gym range, but it was the same problems defensively, same problems offensively. They're not well coached there. And Ross Bjork, man, he went cheap and, he basically, instead of doing a legitimate coaching search, which I'm not sure that he did, he brought in a guy with no head coaching experience from a staff that failed, Michael. This isn't even like Ryan Day, where Ryan Day was coming in from a staff that had success. You brought in Jake Diebler from a previous staff that was just an absolute fucking failure. Just an absolute fucking failure at, they never made a Sweet 16 under Chris Holtmann. I think 2 times they won a first round game and that was it.
Yeah, it'd be kind of like, whoever was second in command under Kerry Combs, like hiring them as the defensive coordinator to replace Kerry Combs. It was a baffling hire. And Jay, I did a little bit of research. I don't bring a lot to the basketball arena, but I did a little bit of research, and I am a bit unclear on which AD actually hired Diebler, because it certainly seems that the whole Diebler things was in the works with Gene Smith before, Bjork arrived. I again, the timeline's a little fuzzy to me.
Yeah. Well, if I'm not mistaken, I believe, Ross Bjork and Gene Smith had some overlap there. So it's kind of murky about whose hire that, Jake Diebler was. I understand that Ross Bjork was the athletic director in, I know that he made the formal announcement to the team that, Jake Diebler was coming on, but at the same time, it's like Gene Smith was still like the head athletic director all the way up until the summer. So
yep.
I don't really know. I know they said that Ross Bjork was like the main guy selecting. I don't know, man. I don't know. But here's the fact of the matter is, it was a poor choice. Actually, it was a disgraceful, disgusting choice. It's just, man, Michael, I have some things here. Go ahead.
I think that's something that Gene Smith's legacy can really add as well, is that the basketball program really went to the pits under Gene. And so,
yes, Gene Smith absolutely single-handedly destroyed our basketball program and our baseball program, for that matter.
Yeah. And I think that's an athletic program problem. There were too many sports. Did you know that Bjork was having to dig out of a big negative last year? That the athletic department ran a big negative last year. Now, there's some exterior circumstances that led to that, like some major, kind of like investment that they had to do that goes on the expense line, but it's not going to be a reoccurring expense next year. However, the athletic department did run at a multi-million-dollar negative, last year. So Bjork's got to figure out where to spend the money.
My question to you is, are we fucked then? Do we just not have the money to afford like a big time basketball coach, or renovations into the Horseshoe? Like, what are we talking about here? What does that mean?
Well, I think we have to see, I did not have a line item on the budget. All I know is that there was some major investment that they made this year that, it didn't seem like they were concerned about making budget next year. Like it was kind of a one-off. So I don't think there's major financial trouble, but also, they've got a lot to balance because they're paying for a lot of different sports. And the NIL is actually helpful in a way that money doesn't have to necessarily come out of the athletic department. Gets to kind of come in these other sources. But I guess you could argue that maybe some of that money would have flowed into the athletic department previously, and now it's flowing into NIL. I don't know how all that works out, but I think that where there's a will, there's a way. And there's certainly enough money coming through the Ohio State athletic department to have a top 15 or 20 basketball program. I think it's just a matter of how they allocate that money. And I think that Ross Bjork wants to eliminate some sports. It's an uphill battle for him because it's a very tradition type thing at Ohio State to have all of these sports. But I think that there's multiple reasons that we need to reevaluate that and start, cutting out some of the very unprofitable sports that nobody cares about. I'm sorry, grandfather them out that I don't know. I don't know when you stop it, but at some point you just phase them out and you save that money and you reinvest it. And you get a winning basketball program and you get a winning football program. And now you do start to have surplus money because those are your two money makers. And nobody cares about one of those money makers right now, Jay. Let's face it. Nobody cares about Ohio State basketball other than just a select few.
And I don't understand why. Speaking of money, everyone, our super chat has been fixed. It has been fixed. So if you would ever want to have something in the message that you absolutely are dying to ask us, we are obligated to answer super chat. So it's now there available for you. But Michael, you just made the point that nobody cares about Ohio State basketball. Michael, we were talking about expectations for this program a little bit ago.
Yep.
Nobody dare tell me the expectations that I have are too high for this program. This program, Michael, is in the top 10 all time with 11 Final Fours made. And they have played in 4 national championship games. Of those Final Four seasons, what season is not included in there, by the way, is the 91-92 Ohio State team that lost to Michigan in the Elite Eight after beating that Michigan team twice in the regular season. And if you don't remember which Michigan team I'm talking about the Fab Five and their first incarnation of a season. That had Jimmy Jackson, I think, who else they have? Lawrence Funderburk. I'm trying to remember some other names.
You talking about Ohio State or Michigan?
I'm talking about Ohio State on that team.
Oh,
I think everyone knows who was on the Fab Five. I'm talking about the Ohio State team that was back and forth with Duke all year, who the number one team was.
Yeah, very few people know that they beat the Fab Five twice because that's like a footnote to a footnote. But,
if you go back and watch the Fab Five documentary, they even say it. The players said it. That Ohio State team was damn good, and we hated them. And they had beat us twice in the regular season. But, it's hard to beat a really good team 3 times, and they played, the third time. And, they lost. They lost in the tournament. They lost in overtime.
Jay, I'm going to set this up, and then I'm going to go get a cough drop so that I don't sit here and cough the whole time. But
what are you going to set up, man?
Well, I'm going to set something up for you so that you can go for the next minute or two while I go get a cough drop. How unacceptable is it, not just where the program is now, but I mean, to me, anything less, and I don't feel that this is a lofty expectation, anything less than a top 25 program, like a team that's consistently somewhere in the top 25, maybe not top 10, but at least 15 to 25. To me, that is the bare minimum expectation at Ohio State for the basketball team. What are your thoughts?
I think those thoughts, I think that's a low expectation. Top 25 for a team that I just listed of 11 Final Fours, that's a low bar. That's a low bar to just be in the top 25. I mean, Ohio State should be, like I said, they should be contending for a Sweet 16 every year. So that essentially means you're a top 15 team. Is Ohio State basketball an all-time blue blood? No, of course they are not. But I will say this. They made it to three straight national championships, I believe, with Jerry Lucas's team and John Havlicek winning the first year against I don't remember who they played in their first and their only national championship. The next 2 years, they brought back the same team and lost to Cincinnati. If you win those 2 games, you're in blue blood territory. I would believe that you would need at least 4 titles to be considered for blue blood, and they are a step below, and they are a step below that. But the expectations are the expectations based on the history, and that's that's where I believe they should be. Michael, I just said to the audience that your bar is low for the program. You're muted. You're like, we can't hear you. I think you have to unplug it and replug it in again or whatever, like you did last time.
I just muted it. So, yeah, I mean, certainly being a top 25 program should be a minimal expectation.
No, I think top 15. Top 15 is the expectation, man. I mean, again, it's top 5 every year in football. Top 15 for basketball based on their history. I think that's not unreasonable.
I don't disagree. What I'm saying is, even at the low expectation of just being basically a top 25 team, they're a long way from that right now.
Michael, I just, I'll hold this question in a minute. I just want to get to the present day now with this program. Jake Diebler, man, he is just a terrible coach. He's terrible. I'm not going to call him like a bitch. I don't think he's a bitch like Ryan Day was for a long time, but he's not far from it, man. The guy is just full of excuses. He's like, oh, I'm not going to make excuses for injuries, but the illness was a real thing, even though Northwestern was without 2 of their best players tonight, but yet he still like leans in on the sickness thing. Like, fuck off, dude. You can go suck a dick with that fucking mentality. But again, he's a bad coach holdover from a previous regime that was one of the worst managed programs in Ohio State history. Michael, right now, I do not want to get into like full depth of X's and O's, but the same things I've said before about this program are still true. They play some of the worst defense I have seen. And the hell, man, they haven't played good defense since Jim O'Brien days. Bad defensive stances, no awareness of players cutting back door due to ball you man principles. They foul 3-point shooters like it's their fucking job. I'm not even, I'm not kidding. I've never seen a team foul opposing teams so often from beyond the arc, man. I have never seen it. They do not close well. They fucking jump into people, and it's just like you're supposed to close with your hand up and not jump. It's so fucking stupid. Michael, did you watch the game tonight? I know I asked you to watch it. What did you see out there? I know you're not really the basketball savant as much, but what did you see in your little bit watching them? Did you watch it, and what did you see from watching?
Yeah. So, no, I'm by no means a great expert in basketball. I played through my freshman year, and then after that, I decided baseball and football was enough. I didn't figure there was a whole lot of future for a 6'2", 6'2.5" post player. And yeah, I haven't followed basketball a whole lot through the years, other than just kind of from a distance. But yes, I did watch the game, and in just my rudimentary knowledge of the game, it became apparent that, I don't know the coaching answers because I'm not presenting myself as someone who does know a lot of answers about X and O's with basketball. I can just tell you it was very obvious, even to me, a very low level, understanding of really probably basketball at a high level. And it was clear that they're poorly coached. Their spacing is bad on offense a lot. They take bad shots. The defense, like you mentioned, it just looks kind of sloppy at times. I mean, it's just very evident that they're not a sharp that they're not a sharp team, and that's a result of not sharp coaching.
Offensively, they do not run an offense. They don't. They do not run an offense. They are mostly one-on-one street ball. Not quite as bad as Holtman or Thad Matta, but not too much better either. They really do not try and establish any sort of inside game. And to add on to that, man, you know, the coaching is bad. The defense is horrific. The offense is street ball. But let me get to the roster construction here. The roster construction with Holtman and Diebler, and this is, you know, goes into the fact, you know, Diebler is a holdover from a previously failed regime. The roster construction is just atrocious. Yeah, they actually have like good athletic talent and like basketball talent according to the 247 composite, because if I'm not mistaken, they have the second or third highest 247 top 100 composite players on their roster in the Big Ten, behind at least Michigan State. But that's the only team I know for a fact that has more than Ohio State. They are the only ones. Michigan doesn't have as many. I can tell you, I mean, like Northwestern doesn't even have one, but the roster construction is just atrocious. You know, like I said, they are physically talented. You know, it's just like we are in an era, Michael, of size and length at every position is winning in basketball, and they just do not play their size. At the start of the season, they had solid front court size, but it went away when Aaron Bradshaw got caught up in whatever the fuck ever he had going on, that he's away from the team. Since then, they start Sean Stewart, who is every bit of 6'8" at the 5, and then they have Devin Royal, who's 6'6" at the 4, Micah Parrish, who's 6'5" at the 3, John Mobley at the 2, and he's, you know, on a good day, 6'1" at this, and then Bruce Thornton as well at 6'1". None of these guys are over 6'7", and the backcourt is pint size. Like, goodness gracious, man. They are a bunch of midgets. Every fucking time they step on the court, it is bad roster construction. If you want to see what wins in basketball, go look at Connecticut the last 2 years. Every single one of their players were all above 6'4". They did not play any of these fucking midgets out there. This isn't midget ball. This is basketball. Size, length, and shooting at every single position. It's not fucking hard. We are not Northwestern. This is Ohio State. We can go out there and get those players. Go out there and fucking get them. I am sick and fucking tired of playing these undersized lineups. I'm sick and fucking tired of it. Put Sean Stewart in at the 5, put Aaron Bradshaw at the 4, and then you rotate the foreign Croatian off the bench at 7-1 into the lineup. And you always have one of those big men in the game at all times. I don't want to see Devin Royal at 6'6" playing inside at the fucking 5. I don't want to see Quez Glover, Bruce Thornton, and John Mobley, who are all under 6'2", playing guard. Like, what in the fuck are you thinking? Even if you're a well-coached team, which they're not. They are not a well-coached team. But even if they were, that is still a failing formula. So they're fucking failing at every single fucking asset, Michael. And I'm sick and fucking tired of it.
Well, so what you're saying, I mean, because I really haven't watched them enough to pick this up. What you're saying is he doesn't even use the personnel he has the best that he can. Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. I don't think he has a fucking clue. I don't think he has a fucking clue on how to manage a basketball team. I don't think he has a fucking clue about what wins in today's game, because just seeing the lineups out there just kind of explain all of it. It's just, you know, he just plays a very undersized team. And like, hell, Robbie Hummel tonight, who I respect a lot, and he's the best Big Ten network analyst. He's like, man, Ohio State's going small now. And he even called out the bad defense. He's like, God, Ohio State is playing some bad defense. And he's like the new Dan Dockich. Everyone hated Dan Dockich, but Robbie Hummel's like, you know, I love the guy. He's a former Purdue guy, if you don't know who he is.
No, I don't. But after just one game, Jay, I do know that this Buckeye basketball program is, not ready to soar to new heights. that Diebler is very likely not the answer. I mean, I don't know. Do you think they give him one more year?
Unfortunately, yes. And I'm at a crossroads, Michael. I mean, actually, I'm not at a crossroads because even if it did happen, I do not believe that it would. What I'm talking about is I think I'm going to cheer for the team to lose every game from here on out in the hope that Jake Diebler gets fired and they actually do a legitimate national coaching search and bring in some big name that can turn the program around. Because let me point out that, obviously we know that bringing Jake Diebler along was a disaster and was the wrong move. And he's continuing the same stuff they did under Holtmann. Holtmann did the same shit, playing the undersized lineups and the bad coaching. Same exact thing. He's just a continuation of that. They need, Michael, they need what fucking Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing right now to like the government and cutting it down and like starting anew. They need a complete just cultural shift and roster shift, everything. Just gut it all, burn it to the ground and start over. Right? Have the Phoenix rise from the ashes, man. Have to start completely over with, a coach you can get behind. And a guy, he doesn't even have to be a great recruiter, but a damn good recruiter. Keep the best players in Ohio home. Darren Peterson should never, ever be going to fucking Kansas over Ohio State. And if you don't know who Darren Peterson is, he is a top 5 composite player in the 2025 class, and he's going to Kansas, and he is from Canton, Ohio. That is despicable. That is despicable. Jake Diebler can't even fucking recruit. He has 2 guys that are fringe top 100 guys coming into this recruiting class, and that is just not going to fucking cut it.
Jay, after all this talk about the basketball team, I got a question. Wouldn't some people say, well, Ohio State's a historical football program. You can't expect that much out of the basketball team. Are there other programs that are historical football programs that have had success?
That's actually a really good question, Michael. And I feel like you know the answer by the way you set that up. But yes, there are right now historical football programs that are currently killing it in college basketball. It can be done. It's been done here before. But so to answer that question on the nose, just last weekend, the number 1 and number 2 teams played a basketball game in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And it was the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Auburn Tigers. These 2 fucking inbred South teams are now taking basketball seriously. And the SEC is the best basketball program or conference by a mile in college basketball this year, man. So yes, it absolutely can be done. Look at Florida. Look at Tennessee. These teams are taking basketball seriously. Hell, Michael, like I can think of maybe 2 teams that played in a national championship in football and basketball in the same year, and they literally played against each other in that year, and it was literally Ohio State and Florida. That's back when Ohio State was operating like between football and basketball, the years between like 2006 to 2013, Ohio State basketball was a top 8 program year in and year out, and the football program was the top 5 program. And I think you froze again. Are you there? No, he dropped off. I tell you what, I'm just going to carry this episode the rest on my own. Man, oh man, just these are depressing times. I'm gonna, I wasn't really expecting Michael to add much of that conversation anyway. He doesn't follow basketball as much as me. I'm texting him now. So anywho, back to the whole point about like these teams that are, with length and size at every single position. If you don't believe me, outside of some one-offs, I think with Baylor a few few years ago and Jay Wright's Villanova, the teams that have won in the 21st century have been big across the board everywhere, especially at the 4 and 5 spots. Connecticut, the last 2 years, they didn't play anyone, under 6'4". Even they had Donovan Clingan manning the 5 last year, and he was 7'2". Zach, Purdue last year was Zach Edey. Yeah, he was huge, but they didn't have length at the guard position and eventually caught up to them. So I tell you what, I'm going to read off of, I don't know, I'm just really pissed off, everyone. I'm really pissed off. I mean, I was watching that game tonight in absolute just, it's gotten so bad that I didn't even care. I was just kind of watching it just to watch it, just for show content. I didn't care. Like literally in the second half, I started cheering for Northwestern to beat Ohio State a lot worse than they did get beat. Than they were getting beat at halftime, just because I knew the season was over. It's really, really, really sad that people, they're like, oh, we can make the tournament and this, that, and the other. I'm like, making the fucking tournament is not the standard. Like, you are a bunch of pussies. Like, God dang, like, grow a nutsack. Come on. There's just no care for this program by the Ohio State fan base, and I don't understand why. Look at these SEC schools. The SEC has just, in literally a couple of years, went from they were a terrible basketball program or conference to by far the best conference in college basketball. Let me look at some of these chats right here. Yeah, Slip and Skippy. Convinced the women can beat the men's team by more than what Northwestern did. Well, let me answer that. I don't watch a lot of women's basketball, but I can tell you that the women's basketball team with Ohio State is a fraud. They are similar to the men's program. They don't value size inside. Their guards aren't all that big. I saw they lost to Duke last year because they were a lot smaller than them on their home court. Yeah, they're not very good. They're not coached very well. They'll never win anything under that McGruff or whatever his name is. They're not very well coached, even though women actually are usually more disciplined teams than men. But make no mistake, women's basketball, they play some really, really they make some of the stupidest passes and take some of the stupidest shots in women's basketball, because I think a lot of times they just physically can't get to certain spots, so they're forced into weird shots, but that's just physiology working against them. Diebler is that motto with talent, but less talent than Mata. Roll the ball. Yep, I agree. Yes, James, you are absolutely correct. Ohio State cannot beat Michigan in anything. No, they cannot. No, they cannot. They did beat Michigan last year in basketball in the one time they played. And Michigan at least got rid of Juwan Howard and made, I think a solid hire in Dusty May. The problem with Michigan is they lost to all the decent teams out of conference, and the Big Ten is really no good. And Michigan's turned their season around playing in the Big Ten. The Big Ten's not very good. The Big Ten is very average. I'm not going to say it's terrible. The Big Ten is probably the fourth best conference in college basketball this year. Obviously, you have the SEC 1. I would put the Big 12 2, the Big East 3, the Big 10 4, and then probably the ACC 5th. So there you have it. The Big Ten sucks. Michigan lost to Arkansas. They lost to Wake Forest. They lost to Oklahoma. Michigan's not a good team. They are not a good team. They are fool's gold. They'll get exposed because they're a little too slow. They have some good size with those white guys inside, but those white guys inside are not particularly athletic. I will be cheering for Michigan. I will. I absolutely fucking will be cheering for Michigan. Oregon game. Caroline says, I like Elon Musk. Okay. And the Oregon game, they purposely fouled and lost. That was the last time I watched them play. Just fed up. Yeah. Slip and Skippy, man, you are exactly the type of fan that is just lost confidence in this program, man. Nobody, look at the crowd tonight, man. I don't know how many people were there. It didn't sound like there were that many people there. But again, the Schottenstein Center, I've heard complaints about it not being a great college basketball arena and this, that, and the other. But, I've walked by Cameron Indoor Stadium, man. That place is so fucking small, and it's kind of a joke how small it is. But at the same time, I don't want something as small as that. But there does need to be something done about the Schottenstein Center, about improving the I don't know. It starts first with investing in the program. Like, you're not going to get things changed from a volume perspective from the fans unless you have something out there they can believe in. I mean, you have the IZone at Michigan State, but Michigan State's been to, like, 5 Final Fours in the last 15 years, and they're like at the top of the Big Ten every year, and they always make the tournament, and they always usually win in the first round, and they make some Sweet 16s here and there, even when they're not making the Final Four. So there's that. I would say, I went inside the Dean Dome, whatever it's called, and it's similar to the Schott, similar size and everything. So, I mean, if people are saying the Schottenstein's not a great college basketball arena, then neither is the Dean Dome. Looking around here, basketball and house baseball 3-pointers, which is frustrating. Yeah, well, the invention of the 3-point shot, man, it is what it is. It's just, you get more points that way. And I don't mind the 3-point shot. It is what it is, but you're going to, I don't want to see you going one-on-one and just settling for stupid shots. ACC is no longer the top. No, they're not. The ACC, man, the ACC has just become I almost feel bad for them. No, actually, I wouldn't say almost. I guess I kind of do feel bad because I kind of live in pseudo ACC country, even though I'm like in South Carolina now. But I guess Clemson's in South Carolina, so I am in like SEC, ACC country. Yeah, they're really bad. From what I understand, where it started to change is when that athletic director, or the conference commissioner that was the former North Carolina athletic director who retired in, I believe, 2019, 2020. Once he left, that's when the ACC has just tanked. I mean, I think they lost like 13-2 in the ACC SEC Challenge this year, which is just crazy. Duke did beat Auburn, and Duke's a legitimate team. They're a Final Four contender. It's really fucking sad. It's really fucking sad what happened to them. And, I hate ACC basketball. I don't hate football, but I do hate their basketball. So I don't think we had a chance to get Jay Wright. Jay Wright made it very clear that he was not interested in returning to coaching. I don't even think paying him $15 million a year would have changed his mind. He did not want to operate in the era of NIL, and I don't blame him. He's one of the greats, man. He's one of the greats. I don't think he's as good as Dan Hurley, though, man. Dan Hurley is, man, oh, man, his teams are just – you want to look at a well-coached basketball program, man? Look at Connecticut, man. Connecticut, don't sleep on them in this NCAA tournament, man. They're starting to turn it around some. They're not as talented as they have been, but they are still well-coached. They don't have the size they have, had the last couple of years. But, again, they play great defense, and, I'll be cheering for them, man. I'll be cheering for them. I plan on going to Raleigh for the second round games there. I was cautiously optimistic that Ohio State might actually go to Raleigh, which would be cool to see Ohio State come into North Carolina and play a game. I don't know that that's ever happened, but it's not going to happen now because Ohio State's not going to make the NCAA tournament. So not going to worry about that. The Pistons can turn their team around. Ohio State can do it. Yeah, the NBA and college basketball are different in that regard. The Pistons are no good. They've turned it around some only because their other players have gotten older, but the Pistons suck. Make no mistake. I'm a Pistons fan, and they don't beat anybody that's any good. Cade Cunningham has surprised me some, but, they don't have Jaden Ivey playing right now. Jaden Ivey's like a super athlete, and you need him. They can't be without him and do anything in the playoffs. So, yeah. Just to recap Ohio State, it is it's really fucking sad, and I don't know what to say anymore. Maybe, just maybe, we can have some optimism that, since this podcast was created, the football program the football program won a national championship because of the lunatic fringe, because they were pressing Ryan Day. Yeah, I'm a part of the lunatic fringe. I make no mistake about it. No apologies coming my way. I have the expectations are the expectations. And if you don't like it, then get the fuck out. You're not worth it. It is what it is. So just maybe somebody out there is going to watch our show or other shows who put the heat on the football program. Maybe somebody on the basketball side is going to see this and be like, you know what? It's time to go out there and win. I think this Ted Carter guy, the president, I think he seems to care about sports more. Ross Bjork doesn't seem like a left-wing communist like Gene Smith. So he has that in his favor, but his head coaching hires, in his tenure at Ole Miss and Texas A&M haven't been great. He does not have a great track record there. So maybe he needs to hire some kind of outside consultant to help him make the right hire here, because Jake Diebler's not the guy. I don't think he's going to get fired after this year, which is unfortunate. We're stuck with him another year, which means nobody's going to go to the games. I mean, I feel so shitty about myself that I wasted money on some lower level tickets back in November to go see Ohio State and Campbell basketball play. And man, what a fucking waste of money that was. That was just a garbage waste of money on my end. James says they need to renovate St. John's and move back in there. Real basketball arena, 14,000. Yeah, they would need major renovations, because those seats are just, everything is so old in there. I mean, Ohio Stadium needs renovations too. So across the board, Ohio Stadium, St. John's need renovated. I don't know, but Michael was saying, the university was in a net negative of money. So it's well, where are they going to get the money to do this? It's kind of scary. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, just sad times for the basketball program. I mean, I'm happy that Ohio State football won a national championship, but gun to my head, even before this year, if I had the choice between Ohio State winning a national championship or football or basketball, I'm choosing basketball all day. We haven't won a basketball title since 1960. And I'm just, maybe I'm spoiled. When I first started following Ohio State basketball in depth, they made the Final Four with Scoonie Penn and Michael Redd, Ken Johnson, George Reese. That was an amazing fun time. That was a really, really fun time. And then, even a couple of years after that, they made the second round under Jim O'Brien. And then not long after him was Thad. So maybe in my childhood and early adulthood, I was spoiled. Maybe that's not what Ohio State basketball is. Maybe that's a fragment in a long line of failure. I don't know. I mean, most of the 90s, Ohio State sucked. I don't know about the 80s. I couldn't tell you anything about Ohio State basketball in the 80s. I know that Clark Kellogg played on some great teams, but I think that was the late 70s. Yeah, so it's I mean, maybe the 80s was kind of a lost decade there. I have no fucking clue. But now we've been since we're not going to make the tournament this year. And we haven't made it in 2 years. So the last time we made the NCAA tournament was the 21-22 season with Malachi Branham and EJ Liddell. So it's been, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's going to be 4 years if, going into next year of making the NCAA tournament. And that's disgusting. That is really, really, really disgusting. James says we played at the Dean Dome and Puke. What do you mean we played at the Dean Dome? You talking about Ohio State? Yeah. I'm aware. Yes, Ohio State has played there, but I don't know that the Dean Dome's a great. I mean, my point is, if you're saying the Schott is not a great basketball arena, then I don't think the Dean Dome is either, because I've been inside there and it looks very similar. It's built similar. Slip and Skippy says Governor DeWine wants to throw money at the Brown Stadium, but no Ohio State when he's fuck DeWine, man. Fuck him, that rhino. He's a piece of shit. Vivek 2026. Vote for him. Vote for him. I know he hasn't officially announced, but that guy's got to save Ohio. Talk about a state that's like kind of purplish. I understand Ohio State's fiscally red, but man, you guys are socially blue, like socially badly blue. So, and it's going to destroy your state. It really is going to destroy your state. Feel bad for some of the people living there right now. It's like anarchy there with like some of the stuff that they're, voting on and approving, and, feel so terrible for the kids that are dying and, getting aborted. But hey, man, I don't know. Somebody's got to get the message across that that's just not the way. So I don't have much else to say. Kind of said my thoughts on Ohio State. It's a disaster. It's terrible coaching offensively, defensively, and poor roster construction with a guy that has no experience from a failed regime. So yeah, man, 4 strikes there. It's not even 3, it's 4. Just absolute failure. I'll wait like 10 seconds here, hang out for a little bit if anyone wants to say anything, but other than that, I'm about to sign off. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Be prepared for future basketball episodes too, because it is basketball season. And I think I'll do like an NCAA tournament like preview show. Maybe like just quick look at the bracket, what my thoughts are. I don't know that Michael really pays much attention to the NCAA tournament, but I do. So if I have to do a show by myself, then I will. So, all right, everyone, I'm out of here.